Hey everybody, welcome back to the Indie Lit Forum. I'm Eric, as usual, and today we're going to be talking about the new book from Eden Red. It's like 4 or 5 days old now. It took me longer to make this review than I've been to, but it is. See if I can get it in there. Oh, Monstar Saga, Lordship. This is the third book in the series, and once again, I really meant to get a video on the first two books before I did this one, but the book came out a lot quicker than I thought, and as it turns out, I'm just kind of rubbish at keeping up with things, so my apologies. So I guess to if you haven't read the series, the first two books in the series, you totally should. This book right here makes it worth it, by far. But I guess to kind of hit the highlights of the first two books a little bit. The story follows Cavan, who is a dragonkin. He's actually someone from our world that was brought into this fantasy world through a game. Like, he signed up for the beta of this immersive VMR type game with 1,000 people, and something went wrong, and all 1,000 people were killed and transported into this game. And in the course of the series, you meet a couple other players. Try not to spoil things for people that haven't read, but you run into a couple other players as you go through, and you learn more and more about what actually happened here. But that's kind of revealed, so we're not going to go into that too much. But Cavan finds himself in the first book. He finds himself outside the town of Moonvale, and he fights some kobolds, almost gets himself killed, goes to the town. Turns out, by killing those kobolds, he really helped out the town. So they're like, oh, hey, yeah, come on in. We'll give you a place to stay. He did us solid. And the first book is kind of about him slowly integrating himself into the town of Moonvale. And that's where he meets Orkna, a goblin who becomes one of his main love interests, along with Lorta and Nava. Lorta is a troll farmer. Nava is a siren that takes care of the town's fishing out by the coast. Uh, and there's really a whole host of really fun and interesting characters, from Kogan, the orc mayor of the town, and his son Durzel, who's the smith, and his daughter Dura, who's the librarian, who also becomes a love interest of Cavan as well, further on down the line. You have Henrik, the Arachnics farmer, and turns out warrior. Henrik is an interesting character. I started off the first book not liking him too much. I don't think you were really supposed to. He's surly, and a little blown up, self important. But as these three books go on, he has this definite arc where by the third book, you're kind of rooting for the guy, and he has a couple of really great moments in this newest book. So, yeah, he's a great, like I said, so many interesting characters. And I guess backtrack a little bit, talk about book two. Book two is kind of about Cavan pretty much having established himself in Moonvale, because by the end of the first book, they've made him like the magistrate of the town, and he's a he's a person of interest in the town, and he's kind of becoming a muckety muck type. And then the second book is really about him kind of establishing himself within the town of Moonvale himself. There's a series of events with Brahm, the undead lich. How can I forget Brahm? I'll talk about him again here in a little bit. And also a couple of paladins that wind up coming into town. And pretty much through the second book, he really kind of, really, you know, it's the first book. Actually, a lot of the first book is concerning him developing his farm on the outside of Moonvale. And it's through, his work on the farm that he kind of becomes a person of interest in the town. And then the second book is kind of the arc of him really establishing himself within the town. And now let's get to the third book, because that's the one I really want to talk about. It's the newest one, and if you've read the first two, then maybe you want to hear something about this, or I mean, who knows who this is really for. But anyway, the third book is really about Cavan establishing himself more within the outside world. Like, he is firmly established in Moonvale by now. And I guess backtrack a little bit once again. Sorry, I kind of keep running with an idea. The book starts off with a little recap catch up told from the perspective of Brahm, the undead lich. And I bring this up because I really like this. I thought it worked extremely well, so much better than some other recaps I've read in other books, because it's kind of Brahms' take on things, and he is an undead lich that has like this extremely high level of like omniscient perception. Sorry, I'm still getting over a little bit of a head cold. It's part of the reason it took me so long to get this book read and get this review out. But anyway, he has this omniscient level of perception that kind of makes it logical for him to be giving the recap, because it's like he seems to know everything that's going on. And so by catching up on the events through his eyes and from his view, it provides a little bit of a different angle on things. And it was just fun instead of the normal kind of like, oh, here's the character talking about everything that's happened in the last couple of books, because he just happens to be thinking about everything that's happened in a, linear order. No, no, it was an interesting way to do that, and I really appreciated that. I liked it a lot. Uh, so Rom catches you up on the series of events, and we start off with the book with Cavan trying to settle into the position of being the Lord of Moonvale. And he's kind of like, wow, this escalated quick, but hey, yeah, I'm going to give it my best shot. And this story, there's several different like arcs within this story itself. Like, although, or well, that's what I was kind of thinking at first. But then when I finished the book, like it really turned out to be kind of like more just kind of different steps in this one kind of overall story, because this book is the longest book, and it's so much longer than the first two. There is a lot going on in this book. There's a lot of really great climactic fight scenes. Like, I mean, there's been several within the series so far, but there's just as many, it seems like, in this one book. And at the same time, there are several moments of just, like deep kind of emotional, like turmoil and reconciliation. It's, uh, Warta the troll actually, I think, has a really kind of good arc through this. Well, I think she has kind of a good arc through this series. Like, there's several moments throughout the series itself that I feel like test her perception of who she is and who she wants to be. And I feel like in towards the end of this book, she really comes into her own. Uh, Very much. Like, she has a really, I think, great moment kind of at the end of it. Uh, and like Yeah, like I said earlier, Henrik actually has a really great arc through this book. I tried to kind of scroll down some notes here so I wouldn't miss too many things. I'm still gonna miss stuff. Forgive me. Also, I want to kind of uh, Hagasa is. There's several great new characters in this installment. Like, there's some that, they're there more to just kind of serve a purpose and they're in and out, no big deal. But then, and then there's Nola, the succubus ex paladin from the second book, who is a character from the second book that comes more, gets more fleshed out and becomes more a part of, just this, world, in a bigger way in this book. Like, she has a little bit of an arc herself. It's not as much as some of the more major characters, but at the same time, it's great to see these minor characters all really kind of having little arcs of their own. Uriko, she was actually, kind of a baddie in the second book, but I remember thinking when she was kind of introduced and kind of made her way off stage, I remember thinking, I think we're going to see a lot more from her, and we did, and I was happy to see that. But she is a dark elf archer that turns out's been kind of doing some stuff for somebody else, and that's she has kind of a whole little story here, and then and through her, and also with her, is introduced the character of Lila, who, why, she seems kind of almost like a really minor character, but by the end, I think we're going to be seeing a lot more for her from her. I think she is going to wind up being pretty important, which is, I guess, what really I liked about this book. Like, there's been so many characters in this series so far, and I mean, they've been treated well, but in this book, like, it feels like so many of those kind of more minor characters get a lot more of a moment and, almost steal the show at times. And it's really great. I really like that. And that there's a lot of things to like about this story. It was, I want to say, epic a little bit. Like, I mean, it's a pretty long book. It took me several days to work through. Granted, I had other things going on that were keeping me from reading quite as much as I normally do, but normally it would not have taken me as long to make it through this book. So there is that. It's a long one. There's a lot going on, a lot of great action, a lot of a lot of high emotion, a lot of high stakes that get delivered on. So yeah, great book. You should definitely check it out. I almost forgot to say though, explicit content warning. If you're not into that, then, which I don't know if I have a lot of people on the channel that aren't yet. Like, there's not a lot of people here, but, future proofing, I guess, and also just probably a good habit for me to get into. But yes, definitely an explicit content warning. This is Eden Red. That's usually going to happen with her work. Just throwing it out there. And, but if that is something that you're interested in, she, as usual, does it really well, and it doesn't seem forced too much. But at the same time, if you're the type of person that looks down on something for having that, I will say that you shouldn't, because this story itself, without the explicit content, even though it's, there's a lot of it in there, it's rather pervasive, it's part of the story, but it could, not be there, and it would still be a great story. Just it being there, I think, actually makes it a better story. Just throwing that out there, something to consider. But yeah, I think I've gone on long enough. This is dragging out kind of long. I mean, I don't want to waste all your time. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped. Like, if you were on the fence about, should I try out the series? Then, hey, you, you probably should. You should probably give it a shot. Uh, that being said, thank you for watching. Thank you for bearing with me. If you like what I'm doing, give me a like. Maybe subscribe to the channel. I don't have a lot of those yet, and it'd make me feel better. All right, thanks much. Y'all have a good one.